Hello everybody, and thank you for inviting us to share some recent experiences from 4-H with you today. What an unpredictable year it's been for us, and for you too, hasn't it? In February and March, we just managed to complete our planned first trip east of the year, with 4 days to spare before the borders closed. In May, with about 1 month's notice, we managed to change our planned trip into a virtual itinerary, not only to Hungary but also into Romania and Ukraine as well. In the event, that virtual itinerary proceeded as planned, with lots of help from Hungarian friends, like those who organised a distribution of basic foods and cleaning items to hundreds of Roma or Gypsy Christian families spread over half of Hungary, and that was really successful. Then, in September, we had another trip planned in person. We planned it almost down to the loo stops, but we had to cancel it with a week's notice because a week before we were due to fly, the borders closed, and Hungary now has more virus than it had at any time earlier in the year, and they and we are very sad about that. If we go back a step though, sometimes people who don't know us too well ask us what you do when you go to Hungary. Here's a general checklist, and over 17 years we've done probably 80 trips in total like this, involving uploading and distributing aid, Bibles and books, site visits to building projects, especially church building projects, review and planning meetings with local Christian leaders, speaker meetings and services and other public events, and then of course encouraging Hungarian Christian workers, quite a few of whom we part support. A stranger question that we might ask now is this: what do you do when you suddenly can't go to Hungary? This short talk is about some of the things we frantically had to change recently, and some of the original plans we're still trying to complete sometime later, since our September trip was unfortunately cancelled. Unfortunately, most of our speaker meetings in this country since March have been cancelled. At such meetings, we're often given items of aid to take to Hungary and the neighbouring countries, but this year most of that has not been possible. So instead, more people have been bringing things to us, to our flat in Clevedon, perhaps amongst other things to enjoy its seafront position overlooking the Bristol Channel. In the top picture we see two friends who came all the way from Southampton to bring items of clothing and footwear for us, and in the bottom picture, well, we wouldn't have recognised her either, but Sandra comes from Wellington and she often tours the charity shops in her town in order to try and find musical instruments that will be really useful in the churches and other situations that we visit in historical Hungary. Several times a year we pack such aid in Copse Road Chapel, which is only a few hundred yards away from our home in Clevedon. And ahead of our planned September trip, we had such a such a packing occasion, and that went more or less as usual, although we don't normally wear masks when we do this, in the large foyer of the chapel top left, and then in the porch bottom right, where the boxes etc. are made up. We send the pallets ahead of our own travel from Avonmouth, and at the Avonmouth depot on this occasion it really looked like normal service. A friend who often helps us take the pallets to Avonmouth and then to help us wrap them and see them into the warehouse is Martin, who lives near Bristol Airport, and he helped us again on this occasion too. We're grateful to him. 10 days later, though, at the depot near Budapest, things didn't look as usual. Maybe on 80-odd occasions over the last 16 or 17 years we have sent aid and then collected it ourselves at the other end. Rosemary's become adept at breaking her fingernails, opening the plastic wrapping around the pallets, and then we together load the boxes into our rented minibus and take them off and distribute them in Hungary and Romania and Ukraine and Serbia, etc. ourselves. On this occasion that couldn't happen, but instead we had some wonderful help from a good friend of ours in Hungary. His name is Barbaric Peter. He's a very active Christian, member of a local church, and is also chair of Hungarian Youth for Christ. We had quickly arranged for him, after our trip was cancelled, for him to collect the aid for us and then take it on to our base in central Hungary. That will be the bottom one of those 3 red circles at a place called Orgovan. There is a indigenous Christian mission based in Orgovan, and some of the boxes of aid they take and distribute locally, and more of that will then have been put into our store, especially the musical instruments, because we will want to take those on ourselves probably now early next year. Some of the aid Peter took further to northeast Hungary, to Hungary's second city called Debrecen, and here we see him without his beard. His beard, he told us, was a COVID beard, and his wife was very pleased when he finally shaved it off. He's seen here with the leader of the Hungarian mission to Roma. We call it KCA for short, and of course we would have had a meeting there in Debrecen with Laszlo had we been able to go. Interestingly, the pictures on the back walls show some of the project within which 4-H has actually participated, especially in Hungary, helping to build new churches.
Hello everyone, this is Rosemary taking over. Peter also took 500 books from Orgovan to Debrecen, and from there another friend will take them to Sotmar in Romania, which is circled on the top right-hand corner of the map. Hungarians generally are too poor to buy books, and very few Christian books are written in Hungarian. We discovered how much they were needed some years ago when we took about 3,000 books to a pastors' conference that 4-H had sponsored in Romania. At the coffee break on the right-hand side of the picture, a swarm of locusts in the form of pastors and their wives arrived. And within 30 minutes, all the books had disappeared. 4-H gives and distributes them free of charge, and we were delighted to find in this church foyer almost every title on their bookstand was 4-H printed or published. We especially try to publish books by Hungarian authors, so we have organised several competitions to find new ones. This year we will have published 4 novels for young people, 3 by Hungarians and 1 which was written by Eric. The first of these, for teenage girls, was ready early in September, so Peter was able to take the copies you see here in the van for Hungarian churches in northwest Romania. Peter also collected hundreds of Bibles for us from Budapest, destined for Hungarian churches in Ukraine. But because of the border being closed due to COVID restrictions, they were left with the pastor's parents in Újkígyos in Hungary, and he will collect them from there. Ukraine is officially the poorest country in Europe. The Hungarians who live in its southwest corner are an unwanted and very poor minority of the population. We are glad to give these much-needed Bibles free of charge. Some will go to this building, which 4H helped Pastor Donny, whom we also part support, to purchase for a new Hungarian church plant in Ukraine. Donny and Lona and all the church members are working hard to renovate it. We're helping other fellowships with church buildings too, and would have visited the 2 circled here, but sadly we're having to make virtual visits instead. This one in Pilisvörösvár, where the fellowship has never had their own building. You can see the empty site at the top picture and the new building arising in the bottom right. In Kőszeg too, near the Austrian border, there has never been an evangelical church building yet. 20 years ago, Eric took a team to help complete a home for the first pastor, shown here with his family, bottom right. Tragically, his wife and disabled son died in a car accident, but the fellowship survived the shock, and we've been asked to help them buy this closed restaurant to convert into a new prayer house in the centre of town. On our mission trips, we also arrange visits with various church leaders to see how we can help them more. Some meetings are much more formal than others. At the moment, all these meetings are taking place by phone or by email instead. Please pray that these meetings can be just as effective, even if they're less enjoyable and efficient than face-to-face ones. We had also arranged speaker meetings, which are events we always enjoy. Sadly, we had to cancel these at all the places circled. And we couldn't visit in person with the Christian workers we'd planned to meet all across Hungary. We would love to share with you the stories and needs of all those pictured here, and many others too, but we don't have time. Please pray that we can encourage them by telephone and email instead. Now, here's Eric again.
There are always unexpected things to do on our multi-purpose missions, and we're so sad now, but we'll never know what extra unplanned things God had for us to do on the September mission. Here's a verse that we do well to meditate on, especially in these unusual and uncertain times. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails." Some of our very careful plans recently have come unstuck, and probably some of yours have too. The Bible says it's the Lord's purposes that will prevail, and we can be really thankful for that. A question I tried to address in a new online Christian magazine in Hungary in June was, can any good come of COVID-19? I strongly believe the answer is yes, There's no time here to say in detail why, but here are just a few up-to-date answers from the world of 4-H. Of course, our planned travel to Eastern Europe in October too wasn't possible. But because our friends haven't been able to go out so much, many of them have been knitting even more and more beautifully than usual. And with Caroline's help this time, as Martin was unavailable, we sent further aid on the 20th of October. With people everywhere reading more than usual, we're told that book sales in the UK, for example, are back up to 2012 levels. We're working hard on yet another new Hungarian book. This one a dramatised biography of the greatly blessed Hungarian Baptist missionary evangelist of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Kónya Mihály. And though we can't travel to encourage Hungarians in person at present, we're developing innovative ways of doing so this winter. More of this next time. Though we must say that God is still shining light in the darkness, as this picture from our balcony in Clevedon dramatically suggests. A picture used recently on the cover of the magazine Szeretet, meaning love, published by the Hungarian Baptist Union of Romania. There's spiritual evidence of this ongoing light in the darkness from a Hungarian Roma church in Romania that we helped build in 2009. 9 more recent converts have recently been baptized. So thank you for praying for 4-H and for us. We need every single prayer that can be offered. We're going to leave you now with 2 slides of points for prayer and praise, one general and one more specific. God bless you. Bye-bye.